No.
All right, let's bring it right now. Christopher Hitchens, he's Vanity Fair columnist, and he's the author of the newly released book, The Portable Atheist, an anthology of godless writings. Boy, just what my mom wants for Christmas. My Southern Baptist mom, Christopher, actually signed a book of hers. I don't know if I'll have her get this one for Christmas. Christopher, how are you doing this morning?
Fine, and greetings to your mum. I think it was my Clinton book I signed for her.
Yes, it certainly was. I think she'll just reread that one.
But I think this is the perfect. This is a much more seasonal gift. The portable.
It really is. So
no family should be without such a stocking.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm going to keep this away from my sons also. So, Christopher, tell me why the need to write this book.
Well, it's not written by me. It's written by great thinkers and philosophers and scientists down the years. Those who don't believe that God intervenes in human affairs, and those who think we have to take responsibility for ourselves. Basically, why now? Well, because of what the parties of God are doing everywhere you look. Whether it's trying to acquire nukes in Iran, or trying to destroy civil society in Iraq, or trying to bring on the Messiah with crazy settlers on the West Bank, or trying to teach nonsense in American schools under the guise of so-called intelligent design, or hold up stem cell research. All of this kind of thing, I think, has created a healthy backlash response, which is why this book is already on the paperback bestseller list as soon as it was published. It's not because of my blue eyes.
But your
because people have had enough of clerical bullying and intimidation.
All right. Your last book, God Is Not Great, did fabulously well also. Obviously a bestseller. Why do you think it is that that book and the God Delusion and all of these other books, Sam Harris's books, have been doing so well?
Well, I think for the same reasons I just gave. I mean, it's the plus the irritating assumption that's made all the time in the mass media that everyone in this country is some kind of believing Christian. There's a sort of feedback loop from bogus opinion polls through.
But something's happened. I mean, you remember Time magazine? Obviously, in the 1960s had that "Is God Dead" cover. We've been fighting this battle in America since the 1960s, and atheists have been very outspoken. It seems to me over the past couple of years, though, these thoughts have gone more mainstream.
Yes, I think that's right, and in unexpected places too. What we found from research is that the fastest growing minority in the United States is those who don't have any religious affiliation. Maybe as many as 25 to 30 million people now, and growing. The number of people who actually say that they're atheists is not anything like that big. But people who say, don't count me in, I don't go to church, I don't identify, I don't profess any faith. And I think people like that are very seldom taken into account in public discussion. And one of the ways they make themselves felt is because they tend to be literate people, is by going out and at least rewarding authors who are willing to speak for them.
You talk about extremists across the globe. I know Willie wants to talk about the crazies in Sudan and the teddy bear, but doesn't a lot of this also have to do with the fact that George Bush got reelected in 2004 supposedly by evangelicals? I remember the day after the election, people like Maureen Dowd and Gary Wills were blaming those crazy evangelicals. Isn't this as much a Bush backlash as a God backlash?
Oh, very much so. And I think myself that a moment when things began to go bad for the so-called Christian right was probably when the president decided to intervene in the private life of the Shivo family in the very clumsy, grotesque way that he and some other Republican politicians did. I think a lot of Americans then thought, that's enough of that. He's gone too far now.
Yeah.
And I think that, if you notice, I mean, the Christian right doesn't really seem to have a candidate at present.
Mike Huckabee.
Who is that? Well, I guess in a way he might be their candidate, but he's a bit protean, isn't he? I mean, who is the guy? Dobson, Reverend Dobson, focus on the family.
Yeah.
I love that bumper sticker, don't you? By the way, it says "Focus on your own damn family." Anyway, he was saying the other day that he thought they might have to run an independent.
Yeah. What about Mitt Romney? He's going to be giving a speech on Thursday about his religion. You think it's very important that Mitt Romney starts talking about his faith?
Yeah, I think he has to be asked a number of very important questions. One is, what was he thinking until 1978, when he was a year when he was well into adulthood, which was the year that the Mormon Church officially ceased to be a racist organization. Up until then, it wouldn't really admit a black person to any office under its doctrines. That's a very important question, seems to me. We don't know either how sincere the Church's revelation that it shouldn't be doing this anymore was, because they only changed just in time to come into conformity with the law, as they had previously with polygamy. And then there's the question of the Church's elders and the so-called prophet who leads it, whose authority is supposed to be higher than that of any other human. In other words, higher than the U.S. Constitution. So we need to know what Mr. Romney thinks about that too.
Christopher, it's Willie Geist here. I know you've been following that story out of the Sudan very closely, where a British school teacher, they were extremists calling for the death of a school teacher because she dared allow her students to name a teddy bear Muhammad. I guess this sort of proves your thesis. Is that the way you look at it?
Well, in a way it does, in a way it doesn't. I mean, the whole business of not representing the prophet, having pictures of him or idols or images of him, is initially quite a good idea. It's supposed to stop idolatry. It's supposed to prevent idolatry, but now, of course, it's become a form of idolatry. In other words, you can't have a rational discussion about the prophet without someone calling for your death. And since a human being a vulgar, horrible mammal can have the name Muhammad, it seems to be perfectly all right that a pet can have one. A pet is not going to disgrace the name, but an individual called Muhammad might very well do so. What if he's called Atta, for example?
That's true.
Okay.
Good point. So let's talk about faith and politics in America. Despite the fact that books like these are doing well, do you think an atheist could ever be elected president of the United States?
Yes, I do. I think a person could come forward and say, I don't go to church. I don't think I'm here because of the divine plan. I don't think God is on our side or on anyone's side. I think we have to take responsibility for ourselves. I think if there was a candidate of average integrity and ability who said that, I don't think he'd be marked down for it. I think people would, in fact, perhaps mark him up for it, because what Americans definitely don't like, and this we do know, is religious hypocrisy. They're not impressed by people suddenly making professions of faith like Mrs. Clinton, who never used to make them before. Apparently having been told by her handlers that that's what would sound nice. That's offensive to people who genuinely do believe, it seems to me.
And of course, you bring up the point about the ethics of non-believers versus the ethics of believers in your book. Let's read that clip. 9 times out of 10, in debate with a cleric, one will be told not of some dogma of religious certitude, but of some instance of charitable or humanitarian work undertaken by a religious person. My own response has been to issue a challenge: name me an ethical statement made or an action performed by a believer that could not have been made or performed by a non-believer. As yet, I have had no takers. So you don't buy the fact that someone of faith is going to be a better person and more ethical than somebody that has no faith.
Well, I don't know of any case where, if you take an example such as that of Dr. Martin Luther King, for instance, a very well-known one and very often quoted, obviously a man motivated, as far as we could tell, ostensibly by his religious faith or his religious conviction to stand up against segregation and racism. But the people who organized the March on Washington, often forgotten now, great black secularists like Bayard Rustin and the great union leader A. Philip Randolph, they weren't motivated by religion, and they did just as much for civil rights as Dr. King did. So that's roughly the line I take, and I have never had it pointed out to me that there's anything a religious person can do ethically or morally that a non-religious person can't do. However, there's a corollary question I ask as well. I ask anyone, can they think of a wicked action undertaken or an evil statement made by someone because of their religion? No one has any difficulty then thinking of an example. People have thought of an example before you've finished asking the question. It's too easy.
All right, Christopher Hitchens, thank you for being with us. As always, we appreciate it.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Like I said, I will keep this book away from my sons.
I think it's a great stocking stuffer. You go ahead and do it.
Okay, that's all right. But it is going to be a bestseller. It already is.
Absolutely.
The Portable Atheist.
Wow.
This is a fascinating trend in publishing over the past, I would say, 18 months to 2 years, where books of people coming out talking about atheism and talking about the God delusion are bestsellers.
The Portable Atheist. What a great holiday gift idea.
Coming up next, Freddie Ballgame.
Freddie.